My grandmother always talked about World War II. This was a time that defined America. We were innovative, we were bold, we were American. There is no challenge that was too big for us. It didn't matter the sector of society, be it business, manufacturing, education. We always rose to the occasion. So when people asked me, what did I want to be when I grow up? I always said, my grandmother. Not because I wanted to be the matriarch of the family, but she embodied the American spirit. She could literally fix anything, from broken arms on chairs to windows shattered by baseballs. Side note, if these destructive occurrences sound like crimes that a 9-year-old boy would commit, it wasn't me. As I watched her fix these things, I would always ask, how'd you learn to fix that? And she would always tell me some long, drawn-out story that was somehow connected to World War II. Now, our time together was always fun. It usually consisted of eating pecans or hearing stories about the frontier, which is where she gained her skills. But what she enjoyed the most was racing against the clock to fix everything that I broke before my grandfather got home. She told me she had to learn to fix everything because my grandfather was a soldier, and like most men during World War II, he was called to duty. With so many men off the war, it created a talent gap. Our manufacturing lagged, and as a result, our prosperity was threatened. These stark changes in the economy called us to put our racial and gender biases aside. Because as we all know, in America, prosperity is a priority. So with America's vibrancy at risk, we relied on women and people of color like never before. Before the war, America didn't really value people like my grandmother. She was a woman and a person of color. So this meant bringing people like her into the marketplace quickly would take an entirely new system. Limited resources and time constraints led us to implement guerrilla warfare strategies into our education system. This was the perfect approach to Goliath. It was raw, carried little risk, and allowed us to train the workforce of tomorrow the fastest, cheapest way possible. Now, before I heard about this approach and the time it was employed, I was shocked because I always read in class that America was pretty conservative when it came to taking risks. So to think, we're a capitalist society, our economy's on the line, and we went with an approach that was untested. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. That's what my grandmother would have said. And during this time in America, we were urgently seeking ways to revive our economy and protect our prestige. So with America's vibrancy at risk, we relied on people of color like never before. And we bonded together, took bold steps together, and expanded opportunities for all Americans. And now, in 2016, we face the talent gap of our time. The Department of Labor predicts that by 2020, there'll be 55 million jobs for Americans with STEM competencies. But at the rate that we're producing talent, 4 out of 10 of these jobs will not be filled by Americans. The growth in the STEM sector has caused a shift in our economy. And not responding to this call doesn't just affect businesses, it affects everyday people. Because anytime these calls go unanswered, it usually leads to 3 things. 1, mass layoffs. 2, small businesses closing. And 3, raise taxes to pay for stimulus packages for corporations. So what do? We go back to war with education. We revive a proven system. We use the same guerrilla warfare strategies that were used before. When we wanted to make this system work, this is what we did. First, we identified our competitive intelligence. And that just simply means that we went to communities around the country, and we identified professionals in the field of need. And when we met them, we asked them 2 questions. First, How passionate are you about this industry? And secondly, are you willing to put aside your biases to help America? And to our amazement, most people said yes. But how many Americans do you know not willing to put aside their biases to move the country forward? And then secondly, we decentralize learning. We encourage these professionals to meet students where they are. We tell them that learning defies space and time. It doesn't need to happen in a classroom or with a textbook to be effective. And lastly, we diversified our training. We knew that most of these individuals could not read or write, so we made training hands-on to affect the challenges they may potentially face in the workplace. And what we learned was that it doesn't take any special teacher with a certification to teach anybody. That if you really want someone to succeed, that you teach to their learning style. You don't give up on them for not engaging with your teaching style. And today, many of these structures still exist. So here's what you can do if you want to help America. In Savannah, there are several community-based programs that could benefit from the skills and talents that are right here in this room. By meeting students where they are, and I mean that mentally, physically, and academically, we can engage an entire sector of society in a matter of months. We must realize that anytime a student faces a roadblock, we don't just limit the mobility of that child, we stifle America's progress. Because a country can only go so far when only half of its population can contribute to its prosperity. I challenge every one of you to be bold, to put aside your biases. I challenge every one of you to be an American. Thank you.